We need foundationalism today in an age of chaos. But I want one more question on the poster children. Back up a little bit historically. Your flash freeze, it was in 2014, talking about what had happened, let's say maybe since the year 2000 and in them, or probably started maybe in the mid 80s, late 80s. But anyway, we're poster children. But back up to the early 1900s, what really got them there? What historically kind of created a wave that hit?
I've
do
been.
you know where I'm going with this?
Yeah. In the book, I'm consistently kind of refusing a single explanation.
Okay.
I think there's so many factors that it was kind of overdetermined. One of the underappreciated elements was the mission boards. These Protestant churches were sending off missionaries, especially the Far East, Africa, and they were for the Presbyterians, the most prestigious part of the church was the mission board. And and the missionaries were going off where you were a Mennonite, but suddenly you were surrounded by your other missionaries, and a kind of what they called an ecumenism of the trenches emerged. It infected the mission boards and then infected the churches. Suddenly doctrinal differences between the Presbyterians and the Methodists seemed a lot less important when the prestigious part is the mission boards. And this is where the really best and brightest were going. Your sharp kids who were morally serious, what did they want to be? They wanted to be missionaries at that moment, right? So you're sending your best kids out, and they absorb it and they come back. Then they're on the mission boards, and nobody in the Presbyterian Church feels that they have the authority to stand up against them. And the ecumenism that happens starts to erode the doctrinal distinctions that Tocqueville had said these different denominations and sects had. You also saw pressure toward unifying. So the Baptists are going to come together into the Northern Baptists and the Southern Baptists. The different Lutheran churches are going to try and blend. Still haven't perfectly, but this was a movement. The Congregationalists are going to merge with two German Reformation churches to become this United Church of Christ. The Congregationalists disappeared into that. So you saw this pressure of kind of consolidation. That's another cause. But I actually think those made possible the triumph of the social gospel movement. And that, I think, is a major factor. Walter Rauschenbusch was a rhetorical genius, really wonderful guy, who really, really knew the Bible and really was a believer. Some of my friends like Stan Hauerwas want to say, well, he was never a Christian. I think that's wrong. He was a very serious Christian. What he said, though, is, that individual sins are not what Christ died for. He died because of these social sins, and the ganglion chain of redeemed personalities. Rauschenbusch was just a wonderful rhetorician, is what are all the people who realize the social problems that Christ bore upon his body. The consequence of all that, of course, is that Christ ceases to matter. He becomes this moral teacher who moves us up to the next level of morality, and then we don't need him anymore. So for Rauschenbusch and the very well-trained Bible-reading congregations he was preaching to, it was one thing. Their children are not going to understand why they need to read the Bible. Their children are not going to understand why they have to go to church. And their children are going to think, why do we have to believe? We are already redeemed personalities living at the higher level of morality. And these are the poster children. They don't go to church. They don't even have memories of their families going to church. They don't understand that their family were Congregationalists, which made them different from the families that were Methodists. They don't have any sense of that. All they have is the inherited Protestant sense of being the moral center of judgment for the world.
It's a little bit of a sin of pride, a puritanical sin of pride, whereas I heard you describe a couple of days ago, they climb up the ladder, they kick the ladder away. They're the only ones up there. And what used to be more of a private matter is now all politics. God is gone, Christ is gone, it's all political.
Right.
I know exactly what's right.
Well, now the Protestant forebears were like this. I mean, it was, the New England with the prestige after the Civil War, with the prestige of having been on the right side of abolition. These women were...
Believe me, I'm on the wrong side,
right.
living in Virginia, right?
Right, but they felt like, they were the center of moral judgment. They were puritanical still in a certain way, but we are the redeemed. We are the elect. And the Boston School of Cooking comes out of this, nutritional stuff as a way of saying, well, we've got to get into the kitchens of these poor, benighted immigrants and clean them up and teach them to eat bland food. And this was all that kind of moral certitude. The greatest account of it is Henry James's novel, The Bostonians, which is about a very masculine Southern lawyer who's set loose among these women in Boston. And it's hilarious to see, this masculine principle introduced into this feminine world of utter conviction of their moral rightness. Henry James is a genius on this stuff.